I'm George Miles, Curator of Americana at Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. On behalf of Director E.C. Schroeder and all our colleagues, I'm honored to welcome you to Beinecke Library's 2020 observance of Independence Day. For several years, we've marked this occasion with readings of the Declaration of Independence and of Frederick Douglass's July 5, 1852 address to the Ladies' Anti-Slavery Society of Rochester, New York, an oration in which he asked, "What to the American slave is the 4th of July?" Those readings were accompanied by an exhibition of Beinecke Library's first editions of both works, providing an opportunity to consider how these powerful words were put on paper to be shared across and beyond the United States. We look forward to resuming this tradition next year and are grateful to all who join us virtually this year when maintaining public health requires us to avoid gathering indoors on the library's mezzanine. Pairing the Declaration and Douglass's oration reflects our appreciation that the ideals expressed in the Declaration were and remain aspirational, a call to liberty and equality that our ancestors and we have struggled to accomplish. As we gather, we acknowledge all those who came before us in this place and on these lands, especially the Quinnipiac people who resided upon and stewarded these lands for centuries before English colonists arrived in 1638. We also acknowledge the history and continuing presence of the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Pawcatuck, and Niantic people who have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. We acknowledge that the founders of our nation, like all of us who do not trace our ancestry to the indigenous communities of North America, were immigrants or descendants of immigrants who came to these shores without obstruction and faced no walls, no tests, and no detention camps. The foundation of this nation was the embodiment of open borders. We also acknowledge the many immigrants who have come in more recent times to confront a system that contradicts the welcoming words inscribed on our Statue of Liberty. We acknowledge that today, as we gather freely, thousands of children and adults are detained in camps on our nation's soil and in our nation's name. And we remember that 401 years ago, in July 1619, an English ship, the White Lion, was sailing across the Atlantic towards Jamestown, Virginia, holding 50 or 60 enslaved people from the west central coast of Africa, the first of millions of people abducted, robbed of their freedom, sold and transported to the Americas in the brutal transatlantic slave trade. We acknowledge all the enslaved people brought to these shores against their will, and we acknowledge the millions more who died in forced marches from their homes, in slave forts on the coast of Africa, or on board slave ships. We acknowledge Native Americans, immigrants, and the descendants of enslaved people brought to North America so that we can reckon with our past in the present to forge a better future. The Declaration of Independence and Frederick Douglass's July 5th oration are historical texts that call across time for us to transform our imperfect present, to recognize that words and deeds are meant to change behavior. As Douglass observed, we have to do with the past only as we can make it useful to the present and to the future. To all inspiring motives, to noble deeds which can be gained from the past, we are welcome. But now is the time, the important time. So now, let us be active citizens of our community, our nation, and our world. May these words from the past inspire us all to do the work necessary to create a more perfect union in which all men and women are truly and equally free to enjoy their inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.